This is William Michael of the Classical Liberal Arts Academy, and in this talk I'd like to explain how future tutoring opportunities are going to develop in the Academy and how they're going to differ from modern teaching jobs. In modern schools, we have large K-12 schools started and organized with no plan for how those schools are going to be staffed. In the Rhetoric, Aristotle explained why laws are more important than courts. He explained that one lawmaker who's wise and just can establish a system of laws that can direct the affairs of an entire nation of people. And the more that the laws address, the less is dependent on an individual judge to consider and make judgments on. Aristotle argued that in cities where there are poorly developed laws or vague laws, all of the decision-making and judgment is left to the judge, who then becomes extremely influential. And if he can be bribed or misled by sophists or any other sort of evil influences, the justice of the whole city is corrupted. And the danger of that is that there are not large numbers of wise and just men to serve as judges in such places. And so Aristotle explained that for justice to be promoted, cities had to establish detailed laws that took power away from the judges and left the judges with simple decisions to make as to whether or not the conditions of laws applied to a case or not. Aristotle's principle for government was that because we cannot expect to find great numbers of wise and just men, cities need to be organized so that they're not dependent on large numbers of wise and just men. It's just common sense based on human nature and the reality of what kind of men and women are available to do things in society. We see this in ancient Israel. We see that God chooses Moses, and through Moses, God reveals the law that governs every aspect of Jewish life. Because the law is given in detail, the work of the judges is quite simple. In fact, Moses can actually delegate the work of judgment as he does in the Old Testament. Aristotle explained this in political issues, in the Rhetoric, as I said. Now move forward to the 20th century or 19th century in America, where the public schools are established, and think about the creation of a school model that divides children into 12 or 13 different grade levels, and then into 6 or 7 or more subject areas at each grade level, where a massive staff of teachers are needed to operate a school, and it's funded by state funding, so money's not the problem. The assumption in the modern school model is that there's going to be a large number of highly skilled, motivated, charismatic men and women available to teach all of these subjects at all of these different levels in every single town and city in the country. And it's simply not a reality. And so what we find is that modern schools, they created a model for which there's not a sufficient supply of quality teachers, and they now fill teaching positions with men and women who are in no way qualified to work as teachers in schools. And this is normal throughout the entire country. Schools are staffed with men and women who are not qualified in any way to serve as teachers, just because the spots in the faculty created by the school model need to be filled. And so we've got this problem in modern education because we've designed a system that cannot work unless we have a massive supply of wise and winsome men and women to teach all of the children in all of these grade levels across all subjects, and that pool of potential faculty members simply doesn't exist. And so there's a fundamental flaw in the design of the K-12 school system, and it's that it takes for granted or assumes that there's going to be a body of men and women qualified to fill all of these teaching positions, and it's simply not the case. When we look back beyond the founding of the public school system, back beyond 1850, we never find any such arrangement for schools, because the men who planned and founded schools were wise men. They understood this already. They already studied and knew Aristotle's principle, that it was better to find legislators than judges. It was better to find a curriculum than teachers, and so on. And so when wise men in history, especially Catholic wise men in history, founded schools, the attention was given to the curriculum. The attention was given to the program of studies that was going to be the focus of the school community, because the curriculum, like the law, if developed carefully and in detail, takes away the dependence on a large number of teachers and allows one or a few skilled men to supervise and direct the education of hundreds of children. And that's how schools were arranged throughout history. Small numbers of faculty members handled the education of large numbers of students. And today we talk about this student-to-teacher ratio, and we imagine that the smaller it gets, the better the school must be. But again, that's because of how the school is designed. The modern school cannot operate without excellent teachers, and so schools will boast that they have a low student-to-teacher ratio, but that's irrelevant. That's irrelevant. If we go back in history to some of the best schools that ever existed, we find that there was a very high ratio of students to teachers. But because the curriculum was excellent and detailed, because the arrangement and the methods were reasonable and effective, that student-to-teacher ratio was irrelevant. And the only reason we can even talk about having low student-to-teacher ratios is because these schools are funded by taxes, which is all artificial. So we've got this problem in modern schools with schools developed with dozens and dozens of available teaching positions and no qualified people to fill those positions. And we've just become accustomed to this culture where unqualified, poorly educated people who have never demonstrated any mastery in either learning or teaching are able to apply for and get teaching jobs. And so it's very common, because of this culture and this expectation in American society, it's very common for people to contact me looking for a job, as if we have these open positions that need to be filled. And in the Classical Liberal Arts Academy, we don't have any such positions, nor will we ever have any such positions, because our school, the Academy, is organized on ancient principles of school modeling rather than this modern K-12 model, which is foolish. So there are never going to be jobs available in the Classical Liberal Arts Academy, because I would never develop a system that was ultimately dependent on these posts being filled by excellent people, because those excellent people don't exist. So there will never be jobs to apply for in the Classical Liberal Arts Academy. It will never be arranged to be dependent on workers. Now, having said that, there will be organic opportunities that grow out of the program where men and women can earn a living by offering some service to students. And this will be through tutoring. But it's very important to understand the difference between real tutoring and this artificial teaching job in modern society. In real tutoring, a student, an experienced student who gains mastery and makes great progress in the school, has the opportunity to turn around and offer his assistance to students who are getting started or are less further along than he is. He can be paid by the parents of younger students or less advanced students to help their children with their studies. And because they study the same curriculum, the same lessons, the same texts, have the same assessments, and so on, there's no better person to help a student than a more experienced student, because he's been through the same exact studies. I often am contacted again by men and women who are interested in being tutors who have never studied the courses in the Classical Liberal Arts Academy. And we have to realize that there's no possible way for a person to tutor students in a Classical Liberal Arts Academy who has not studied the courses that the students are working through. But you see, there's this expectation that any adult can become a teacher, and this is simply not true. In the Classical Liberal Arts Academy, what I'm doing is establishing, as silly as it may sound, a badge and award system that, unlike other programs like Khan Academy, is not some sort of silly motivational game, but is actually a real system that identifies students who make the greatest progress. The badge system is actually going to mark the students who complete lessons, who complete lessons with a certain degree of quality, who have their studies reviewed. They're not simply fudging their way through online quizzes and things like that for points, but while they are working online, they're also having their work reviewed, and the quality of their work is being checked, and they will receive badges and awards that identify them as they continue to work through different courses, all through the Classical Liberal Arts Academy. So you will be able to easily go onto the Academy website and look at the profiles of different men, women, boys, and girls on the Academy Study Center and see who the most advanced students are. What students have completed the most lessons? What students have earned the highest badges, and so on. You can see which students completed courses, which students are progressing through courses, which students haven't even started courses. And it's very easy to see who the people are who are worth contacting for help. And so in the Academy, any interest in tutoring will be manifested by an interest in studying and earning the badges that mark achievement in these studies. So over time, the best students will be the best candidates to work as tutors. And what I'm hoping is that if a child enrolls in the Academy and works for years through his elementary and middle and high school years of schooling, and then moves on to college or whatever other occupation, that student would consider continuing to work in the Classical Liberal Arts Academy and seek to earn some honest income by doing good, by offering help as a tutor to younger, less advanced students. That's my goal for tutoring in the Classical Liberal Arts Academy. Not that outsiders will come in and pretend to be teachers, but that insiders who demonstrate their mastery will turn around and offer tutoring help to younger students, either when they're a little older themselves or even as adults throughout the rest of their lives. They will be members of the student community and will tutor as advanced students. This is how schools should be organized and how tutors should be identified. Parents, if they want to find a tutor for their child, shouldn't be forced to simply accept, someone on the faculty who happens to be employed by the school, because that's not a sign of their competence or ability to teach. The parents can look at a specific course, see who the best students are in that course, and contact them and ask if they'd be interested in helping their children make the same progress. It's an organic system of developing tutors, and it also gives parents a realistic confidence that the people that they're making tutoring arrangements with have mastered the content of the courses that their children are studying, the same content that their children are studying, that there's none of this outside baloney, people just being hired to fill spots, and parents really have no idea who's even teaching their kids, and if they even understand the subject. But parents can know in the Classical Liberal Arts Academy with certainty that the tutors know the subjects because they've actually completed them, and they've completed them, with their work being reviewed and approved as being of high quality. So I think we can develop a real system of tutors and so on. Let me just give you an example of how the modern schools and hiring policies affect students. I had a student when I was teaching at a private school. I had a student who was a star basketball player. He was a junior. He already had college scholarship offers. And for some unexplicable reason, many teachers like to scoff at athletic scholarships, not realizing that the students are earning scholarships that allow them to go to college at no cost. It's an academic scholarship related to athletic performance. But it's academic ultimately. Anyway, I had a student who, as a junior, already had college scholarships lined up for his basketball career. His senior year, going into his senior year, the school hired an unqualified man to teach senior high school biology. He was hired to teach senior year biology with no teaching experience. And this student of mine was enrolled in his biology course. Well, this teacher had no control of the class, had no ability to teach, was completely disorganized, had no experience in dealing with high school students, and ended up causing this student to struggle in senior biology, so that when basketball season started, because of a test that the teacher had given, this student, who had already earned college scholarship offers and was a good student, he was in my Latin classes, he had a D in biology, totally uncharacteristic, looks nothing like any of the rest of his transcript, but with this inexperienced rookie teacher, he had a D and was forced to sit out games in his senior year as a basketball player with college scholarships already in his pocket. That's how destructive this careless hiring of teachers can be. And this is common all through modern schools. The effects of these hiring decisions to fill spots in modern schools are terrible in the lives of many high school children. And schools get away with it by simply covering it up. They just will fire that teacher at the end of the year and replace him with someone else. But the effects are already had in the lives of those students. And that was something that always frustrated me, that the school was designed to depend on this large number of teachers, and the school knew that there was no way for it to find that many skilled teachers to cover those courses, and the kids ultimately pay the price for it. In the Classical Liberal Arts Academy, I'm never going to hire anyone because, frankly, I don't trust anyone. And there's no need to hire someone based on trust, because Everyone can be given access to the curriculum. Everyone can be given access to the courses and said, if you're interested in becoming a tutor in the future, prove yourself worthy. Complete the studies. Show yourself an expert. There's no more just system possible for qualifying tutors. And that's why I say having tutors grow organically within the academy. Parents can see who the best students are. Students can see who the best students are. Students can know that their tutors completed all the lessons they have to study and can respect them because they know that they did the work. That's where tutors should come from. And so in the Classical Liberal Arts Academy, if you have an interest in tutoring students in the classical liberal arts or the classical philosophy or in Catholic theology courses, if you are interested in becoming a tutor, you have to do one thing. You have to prove yourself a master of the studies. There will be no baloney hiring of quote-unquote teachers who haven't studied the courses. That makes no sense. That will never happen. So if you're interested, you have to study. The more the students work through the courses, the more opportunities they'll have in the future to turn around and serve others as tutors. And parents, considering this, should be generous in seeking out tutoring relations for their kids so that their kids can progress in studies more efficiently, but also so that a system of tutoring is developed and funded that allows the students who do the greatest work to be rewarded with the opportunity to become tutors, because that will allow us to build a very strong, very efficient academy system that all Catholic children can benefit from. So I'm working to set that system up and put it into motion. I ask that parents consider being generous and making use of tutors and being willing to pay an older student a little bit of money to work with a younger student. It's good for the older students and for the younger students. And it will help us to build the Classical Liberal Arts Academy and build a system with a model that's sustainable and effective and that can spread without limit. It can spread to hundreds of schools, to tens of thousands of students. And as students continue moving through, there will just be more tutors. The tutors will be qualified. Parents can easily identify the tutors. Students can respect their tutors, and so on. That's what's necessary for the reform of Catholic education. And that system is coming together and developing in the Classical Liberal Arts Academy. So I want to make it clear what my thoughts are, because I'm contacted quite frequently about teaching and tutoring jobs. I want to make it clear how tutoring is going to work in the academy, because it is not going to be like a modern school. Anyone who's interested in teaching or tutoring in the academy needs to study in the academy. And if they don't study, I don't recommend that any parent hire a tutor who has not proven that he is able to complete the studies that he's offering tutoring in. Do not hire tutors whose mastery of the subjects you cannot verify as a parent, because you're going to get ripped off. In the Classical Liberal Arts Academy, I'm working to make this impossible, and I encourage parents to insist on hiring tutors who prove themselves masters of the curriculum, and I encourage anyone interested in becoming a tutor to prove yourself worthy of tutoring by completing the courses yourself. I hope that's helpful. If you have any questions about these things, please let me know. God bless.